Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto number 4, chapter number 19, text number 9. Sindhavo Ratna Nikaran Giravo Girayo Anannam Chaturvidham Upayanam Upajaharu Sarve Loka Sapalakaha. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation. King Prithu was presented with various gifts from the general populace and predominating deities of all planets. The ocean and seas were full of valuable jewels and pearls, and the hills were full of chemicals and fertilizers. 4 kinds of edibles were produced profusely. Purport. As stated in the Ishopanishad, this material creation is supplied with all the potencies for the production of all necessities required by the living entities, not only human beings but animals, reptiles, aquatics and trees. The ocean and seas produce pearls, coral and valuable jewels so that fortunate law-abiding people can utilize them. Similarly, the hills are full of chemicals so that when rivers flow down from them, the chemicals spread over the fields to fertilize the full 4 kinds of foodstuff. They are technically known as charvya, those edibles which are chewed, lehya, those which are licked up, chusya, those which are swallowed, and piya, those which are drunk. Prithu Maharaj was greeted by the residents of other planets and their presiding deities. They presented various gifts to the king and acknowledged him as the proper type of king by whose planning and activities everyone throughout the universe could be happy and prosperous. It is clearly indicated in this verse that the oceans and seas are meant for producing jewels, but in Kali Yuga, the oceans are mainly being utilized for fishing. Shudras and poor men were allowed to fish, but the higher classes like the Kshatriyas and Vaishyas would gather pearls, jewels and coral. Although poor men would catch tons of fish, they would not be equal in value to the piece of coral or pearl. In this age, so many factories for the manufacture of fertilizers have been opened, but when the personality of Godhead is pleased by the performance of yagnas, the hills automatically produce fertilizing chemicals which help produce edibles in the field. Everything is dependent on the people's acceptance of the Vedic principle of sacrifice. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport. There was a devotee of Krishna who was in company of the Lord. He was walking with the Lord, and then in course of the walk he asked the Lord Sri Krishna, I've heard about your divine energy Maya. Can you please explain what is this divine energy and how it influences the living entity? Why it is called Dhuratteya? Generally, devotees who are, especially pure devotees, they are out of the purview of Maya. So the Lord said, well, this is a big subject. In fact, the entire material world is nothing but play of Maya. The living entity wants to enjoy, and the whole world, whatever is happening, is the illusory energy of the Lord captivating the living entities. So it's a long story. So anyway, the Lord told that devotee, let's sit and talk. Whenever we have some long discussion, so we say, okay, let's sit and talk. It's going to take time. So they sat down on one rock, and then Krishna, because it's going to be a long story, long description, so Krishna said, before we start, can you give me get me a glass of water? So, yes, my Lord. So the devotee immediately went in search for water. It was open land, hot summer day. And then he walked for a while. He could not see anywhere where he could get water. Kept walking, kept walking, kept walking. And then, fortunately, at a distance, he could see some greenery, some cottages, some kind of a village. So at last he was very happy that for sure here I will get water. And then I'll go back. And then I'll listen from the Lord. What will he listen? About Maya. So he went to that village, and then he saw one cottage from a distance, went to that cottage, knocked on the door, and the door opened. Very beautiful, charming lady opened the door. And in earlier times, Vedic times, a guest was considered as a Atito Devo Bhava. Unlike present times, beware of dogs. Even if there is no dog, they'll put that. Beware, don't come in. So moment the door opened, that lady with a folded hands, Swami, andar aiye. So Swami came in. Very beautiful, handsome, charming, attractive lady. Andar aiye, baithiye. Baith gaye. And then he said, can I have a glass of water? Yes, Swami. And then she went. And while she was walking, the tingling of ankle bells, very sweet, melodious sound. So she got a glass of water. So he drank the water, and it was unusually sweet. Taste of water also depends on who serves it. So he liked the taste. And then, स्वामी आप कुछ खा के जाइए, इतनी दूर से आए हैं, ठीक है, खा के जाते हैं. So now I'll fast forward the video. In video you know 1x, 1.5x. Now I'll make 100x. So he had the lunch, and then while the lunch was being cooked and was served, they were talking. And her sounds, her talk, her conversation was very sweet. So he felt like, let me continue my talking. Let me stay for some more time. And then 100x, he developed some kind of attachment to her. And they continued talking, interacting. Again, 100x, he developed affection and love for her and proposed to her. She also liked, because very nice, wonderful devotee. So she also accepted the proposal. Again, 100x, they got married. 100x, they got children. 100x, the children got married. Now they got grandchildren. So all along, he was very attached to his wife, very beautiful, very loving, very caring. The children were very nice. And the grandchildren were very, very cute. And more so when the grandchildren would call him Daddu, Daddu. You know, it was so sweet to hear loving, affectionate voice. And he would also very affectionately keep them on his lap, play with them and all those things. So years rolled by, and he got very, very attached to the family. Fortunately, the family was very good, very loving, very kind, very affectionate. And then one day it so happened, suddenly, it became very cloudy and thunder in the sky and started raining, and raining very profusely, very heavily. So much so that everywhere was water. Water could clog, and so much so that it started flooding. The whole village the water started rising and all this. And then because water was gushing from the nearby villages also, there was some kind of a very strong force in the water. And then, they all started getting panicky, and, children, the grandchildren, and they started saving and, trying to the cattle, the lamb, whatever there in the home, they were trying to safeguard, whatever the grains were kept. And then soon the water kept on rising, and so much of current, they started seeing that many of the things started flowing away with the water. And they were all desperately trying to save themselves, save everything what they had, the valuables. And in front of their eyes, one by one, everything started flowing with the water. So much so that the more they tried to hold on to things, but right in front of their eyes, everything was getting wiped away. And then he, with his wife, held each other, and then children, but in front of his eyes, some of his grandchildren got swept away. He's trying to save them. Krishna, finally, because he was a devotee of Krishna, he's desperate. Generally, when a person goes through tough times, we remember Krishna. So he said, Krishna, please help. Finally, in front of his, everything got swept away. And then finally, pleading the Lord, please, save me. He fell at the feet of the Lord. Save me, Govinda. And then he hears a tap. He opens his eyes. Krishna says, where is that glass of water? And he was seated there, in that very place where Krishna had asked him a glass of water. So this is the illusory energy of the Lord, which all of us in this material world are influenced by. And in the illusion, under the influence of this illusory energy, we forget who we are, forget the goal of life, forget our relationship with the Lord, forget that the goal of life is to act for pleasure and satisfaction of the Lord, to perform yagyas, what is being mentioned here. And when yagyas are performed, Prabhupada in the purport is explaining how there is profuse supply of everything. Even in the Gita, Krishna says, when yagnas are performed, there will be sufficient rains. Then there will be enough grains. There won't be any shortage, and people can live peacefully. In today's world, there is no yagna being performed, because forget about performing yagna. People have lost, because of Maya, don't even know that we are Amsha of the Lord. We have to please the Lord. We have to serve the Lord. And everyone is engaged in serving their own senses, serving their own bodies, and relatives, friends, family members. This is Maya. And Bhagavatam time and again is saying that what is that world in which people act. So Prithu Maharaj, what we see in the description, how there was profuse supply of rain. There was enough, when the rains would fall from the hills, all the chemicals will come down. And because the land was fertile, there was enough grains. There was no shortage of anything. So, Prabhupada towards the end of this purport is explaining that how everything is dependent on people's acceptance of the Vedic principles of sacrifice. Yagna, does not mean necessarily that fire yagna what we do. That's why Sankirtana yagna, there is no fire. General, typical when you talk about people, hame yagna karana hai. So yagna, what comes in their mind is that fire sacrifice. But yagna has a broader understanding. Yagna means any activity which is done for the pleasure and satisfaction of the Lord. Any activity. Even the service what we do is a yagna. Even chanting what we do is a yagna. Yagnair Sankirtana Prayir. So, there was once a devotee who came to Srila Prabhupada and said that my wife is very unhappy with me and she is quarreling. So Prabhupada said, why? She said that she does not want me to do management service. She wants me to do more of pujari, deity worship, cooking, deity-related services. She does not want me to do management services. So Prabhupada, he was very, very, at times straightforward, very blunt. He said, your wife is less intelligent. She does not know what is yagna. He says, management also is spiritual service. And then he gives example, just like Arjuna was fighting in the battlefield and he was the greatest yogi. So many times we have some false understanding that, this service is deity service or pujari service or some services which quote unquote we get a feeling that they are very spiritual in nature, and there are some services which are not, which involves a lot of management, dealing with outside people. So Prabhupada gave us a very broader and a holistic understanding of Krishna consciousness. He said, in Kali Yuga, for propagating this Krishna consciousness movement, there will be a lot of managerial work. But then he says, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu promises that if we are doing this managerial work, we will not be entangled. So yagna, which here we are talking about, is not just doing fire yagna or doing sankirtana yagna. It's a broader understanding. All different forms of services which we are doing for the pleasure of the Lord is a yagna. Management also is a yagna. Sometimes we have to do services which are very, very full of anxieties there. Prabhupada talks about spiritual anxiety. Many times we want to be in a comfort zone. We want to do only things which are very pleasing to the body, pleasing to the mind. Arjuna, what he was doing? He was fighting. There was bloodshed. And bloodshed with whom? His near and dear ones, his elders, his respectable, worshipable elders. But because it was for the pleasure and satisfaction of the Lord, it was yagna. If we do for our pleasure of our own mind and senses, it is sense gratification. Even apparently it may be a spiritual service. For what we are doing, what is the intent, what is the motive behind our action? If the motive is pleasure of Guru and Krishna, then even apparently some service which involves a lot of dealings with materialistic people is yagna. Srila Prabhupada gave us very nice, wonderful understanding of Krishna consciousness. Because he himself was Krishna conscious. In fact, there is one pastime where he says, there was a devotee, it was the month of Makar Sankranti, and he went and in the skies there were a lot of kites. Makar Sankranti, people fly kites. So Prabhupada saw the sky, it was full of kites. So he asked the devotee, so you won't be flying the kites? So the devotee looked at Prabhupada and said, no. He says, in my childhood, Prabhupada says, in my childhood, I and my sister, what was sister's name? Pishima. I and my sister used to fly a lot of kites. And then Prabhupada says, her kite would fly always higher than my kite. And there was a competition. Then he said, one day I tried to cheat her. I went on the terrace and started flying the kite, and my kite was flying higher than her kite. See how innocently Prabhupada is saying. I went on the terrace, I cheated her, my kite was flying higher than her kite. Then he said, my sister started crying and then started saying, praying to Govinda, 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 my kite should fly higher than my brother's kite. And then her kite started flying higher than my kite. And then Prabhupada says, in our childhood also, we were very Krishna conscious. We were always praying to Krishna, thinking of Krishna. See, kite also is not flying. Govinda, Govinda, help me fly the kite higher. So Prabhupada is saying that even in our childhood, we were Krishna conscious. So, when we are Krishna conscious, automatically our actions will be yajna. And when we are under the influence of Maya, automatically our actions will be governed by what is pleasing to mind and senses. Sense gratification will automatically ensue, will follow, if we are in Maya consciousness. So that's why our morning sadhana, our morning program, chanting, reading, hearing is very important. Prabhupada said, spiritual life is like walking on a razor's edge. Why he said razor's edge? Because in a moment, in a fraction of a second, we can go in Maya. Krishna bhuliya jiva bhogavancha kare, nikatastha maya tare jhapatiya dhare. Moment, fraction of a second. What it takes to go in Maya, just you have to desire sense gratification. That's why it's a razor's edge. And by the mercy of Prabhupada and Krishna, although it is not easy, although it's like walking on a razor's edge, but if we are simple, if we try to follow, if we are sincerely following what Prabhupada has said, the instructions, then Prabhupada's mercy, blessings will give us the strength to not fall in Maya. On a daily basis, when we do the sadhana, we get the strength to pass the test which Maya will offer on a daily basis. Otherwise, in a moment, we'll be in this dress, apparently we'll be doing service, but it is sense gratification. No doubt, the good part is even service what we do, it is Krishna's service, so there is an element of worse come worse, it's agnat sukruti. Even if we are doing with a contaminated consciousness, still, because it is Krishna's work, 12th chapter Krishna says, if you cannot do this, cannot do this, do my work. Still, there is an element of benefit which a devotee gets. But we should not be complacent. We should always strive that how we should always be working for the satisfaction and pleasure of the Lord. Srila Prabhupada had a very broad understanding of Krishna consciousness. One place is mentioned in one lecture, he says, a devotee actually, just like he quotes example of Prahlad Maharaj. Prahlad Maharaj says, I have no problem. For me, for a devotee, if he is properly situated, he has the Lord with him, he has everything. Santushtaha, Brahma Bhuta, Prasannatma. But a devotee is very anxious because he sees that devoid of this Krishna consciousness, this understanding, there is so much of pain, there is so much of suffering in this world. That's why a person who is Krishna conscious, naturally an outcome would be he's compassionate. Prabhupada in one conversation he mentions how, we are also preachers, we also have plans. Right? We plan, we'll make one big temple, we'll increase the book distribution. This year we'll have 40,000 books. You see how Prabhupada, how much Krishna conscious he was, what plans he had. In one conversation with the devotees, he said, one day we should buy all the available land in Mayapur. You see, we talk about 1 acre, 2 acres. He says, one day we should buy all the land available in Mayapur and we should set up a self-sufficient community. Now you see what Prabhupada is going to say. He said, once we are established, then we'll declare independence from India. We'll have our own country called the country of Mayapur. And all the temples in different parts of the world will be our embassies. And all the temple presidents in those temples will be the ambassadors in those from the country of Mayapur. And all over the world will be exporting devotional paraphernalia. And we'll print our own currency called Chaitanya currency. 1 Chaitanya, 5 Chaitanya, 10 Chaitanya. And people from all over the world will apply for visa to visit the country of Mayapur. So we also, as devotees of the Lord, Prabhupada has given us such wonderful things. We also have to be Krishna conscious and spread Krishna conscious. Think big. Prabhupada used to say, if you go to the forest and aim for a rhinoceros, it's huge. You aim for a rhinoceros, if you're not able to kill rhinoceros, at least you will kill one rabbit. But you aim for rabbit, you will kill one ant. So in other words, we don't have to kill anyone. But the idea is, Prabhupada showed how we have to think big for Krishna. What is yajna? For the pleasure and satisfaction of the Lord. For ourselves, nothing is required. ना धनम, ना जनम, ना सुंदरिम, ना कविताम, कुछ नहीं चाहिए. But for Krishna, I want the whole world. Because the world belongs to Krishna. Everyone is part and parcel of Krishna. Just like Hanuman wanted Sita for Ram. So we also should get into what is the spirit of Srila Prabhupada. What was his consciousness? We are his disciples. So we also, first Janma Sarthakari, we have to be Krishna conscious. We should strive to be Krishna conscious. Always be in a mood how we can please Prabhupada, please Krishna, and then try our best. Once we are Krishna conscious, then Krishna Prabhupada will use us as an instrument in our hands. There was one devotee, he did something very nice, and he, always we look for some appreciation, some name, fame, adoration. So that devotee wrote a very big mail. I did this, I did this, I did this, I did this. Because of me this happened, because of this me happened, this. He wrote a big mail to me. And he marked to someone else also. So he was expecting typically, a reply like, very nice, excellent, well done, keep it up. So he did not get reply. Generally I would have replied, but there was 2-3 other devotees also marked in that email. Because everyone could sense that, too much of glorifying oneself. I did this, I did that, because of me this happened, because of this me happened. So, after 2 days, we met in my office. So he was a little upset. And he again opened up that talk, Prabhu, I did this, I did that, because of me that we could save 5 lakh rupees and all that. But I'm surprised that nobody is appreciating. So I explained to him that how our consciousness, what is material consciousness, full, which is there 99.9% of the people, I did it. That is zero level consciousness. I did it. Kartaham iti manyate. Krishna says, what is that verse he says? Maya prita jnana? Nahi. Prakriti karma gunai karmani ahankara vimoodatma. See, what is the word Krishna is? Vimoodatma. Kartaham iti manyate. Krishna is not in picture at all. That is level 0. Krishna is not there. I did it. What is level 1? Little better than that. Little better than that is, I did it, but by Krishna's help. Krishna's mercy, I did it. Who did it? I did it. Kartam is very prominent, but thoda bahut Krishna aa gaya beech mein. Krishna's help. Many times we also did we only, then others, so that we all get more benefit by mercy of Krishna. So that the other person feels that I am not only I did it, but I am humble also. So by Krishna's mercy. What is level 2? I did it by Krishna's mercy, and I thank the Lord also. I am grateful to the Lord. Because of your mercy, I did it. And I offer it to you as a yagna. I did it by your mercy, and hence I am offering it to you. That is level 2. What is next level? I did it as an instrument in your hand. I did, but you are the actual doer. I have just an instrument, nimitta matra. It happened through me, but I was an instrument in your hand. See how the progression of consciousness. What is the next level? You did it, I did nothing. A pure devotee actually believes, just like Prabhupada, when he was going on a Jaludutta diary, you see, he never knew that this Jaludutta diary one day will be published. He wrote, most insignificant beggar. He writes, I have no power to preach. I have no knowledge. He has already got the title Bhaktivedanta and is writing, oh Lord, I have no knowledge. I have no power to preach. That is real humility. That is what is going on in his consciousness. And when he said, you have done wonderful things, he said, I have done nothing. I am just a puppet in the hands of the Lord. So Krishna consciousness means having a realization, having a deep feeling that I did nothing. The world as a Vyavarik level, people will glorify, oh you did this thing, such big thing happened, big temple happened. He may at a Vyavarik level even accept. But deep within he has a deep realization that I have nothing. On my own I cannot, a dry piece of grass also I cannot break. I cannot cut. But for Krishna, with Krishna's blessings, for the service of Krishna, can take on the world. Which Prabhupada demonstrated. On one side he is writing, I have no knowledge, I have no power to preach, insignificant beggar, and the noble laureate is coming and says, you rascal, you have no knowledge. So humility not necessarily is an external disposition, walking very softly, talking very gently. It is more of a deep realization, consciousness that Krishna, He is the prime mover of everything. Everything is moving as per His divine plan. If He wants, big thing can happen. If He does not, it's like Arjuna. He couldn't protect those queens when, the queens of Dwarka, he was taking them in a chariot, attacked by dacoits. And the dacoits, he couldn't protect the queens. There's a verse which says, I am the same Arjuna, the same bow Gandiva, with the same chariot driven by the same horses, but minus Krishna, it's all null and void. I couldn't protect. So as devotees also, we should remember that Krishna at times for His preaching mission, Prabhupada at times for His preaching mission will use us as an instrument and we'll end up doing big things. At that point we should not again go back in Maya and think that I did it, or I was capable, I have so many abilities. That's why it's called razor's edge. In a moment you can be in illusion. Kartaham iti manyate. So last time I shared that Prabhupada once went to a temple and dress for Tulsi Maharani was made? Here or? So that's also a wonderful pastime. If I have shared, otherwise I thought I will probably share. How many of you were not there when? So Srila Prabhupada, briefly I'll share, so that, because it's a very, very touching thing and a very, shows how Prabhupada's mood was. Because all the devotees, we all are very fallen. And a pure devotee is compassionate. On one side, yes, he sees the good quality. So Srila Prabhupada once was visiting a temple, and so in his room there was Tulsi Maharani, and the dress was worn out. So the temple president called a Mataji and said, can you please stitch a dress? And it was a newly married couple, husband and wife. So the Mataji was very excited. She got the service of making a dress for Tulsi Maharani, which is placed in Prabhupada's room. Prabhupada is going to come next day. So whole night she worked and she stitched that dress with no experience whatsoever of stitching, but with a sincere desire to please Prabhupada, to stitch a very nice dress. But imagine, with no skills, no experience, somehow she made the dress. And next day morning, before Prabhupada's arrival, the temple president saw the dress. He says, "Hey, what what dress have you made? What will Prabhupada think?" Scolded her. And said, "I don't think we can put this, better to put the old dress." She started crying. Anyway, the president said, okay, put that dress. To console her. "Don't cry, put that dress." Somehow, with crying, she put that dress. What have I done? I've done disservice to Prabhupada. One small service I got, that also I couldn't do properly. So crying, and she put that dress. Then Prabhupada came. He entered the room. First thing he saw Tulsi Maharaj. He said, "What a wonderful, beautiful dress. Who has made this?" And this lady was, scared. "Wonderful dress, very nice dress. Who has made this?" First thing. And that lady again started crying. Out of sheer joy, sheer compassion which Prabhupada is showing. So this lesson for all of us, this thing is, when we are in a community of devotees trying to practice Krishna consciousness, we'll have all kinds of devotees. So Prabhupada also saw the good in devotees. Everyone has faults, everyone has shortcomings, everyone has anarthas, but Prabhupada at times amplified just to encourage devotees. And many times when we are not careful, we try pulling someone down by criticizing, blaspheming, finding faults. We should restrain unless it is our assigned service. Otherwise there is a maja. We come from material world, in the material world it's a maja to pull someone down. There's a rasa in criticizing, finding faults. So we as devotees, we have to be careful, because I have realized over many years, this is one thing which pulls devotees out from Krishna consciousness. Fault finding, blaspheming. Not so much breaking the regulatory principle, not so much because we are weak in sadhana. There are many reasons because of which we can be weak in sadhana, or because of conditioning, there is challenge in following the regulatory principles at times. Krishna Prabhupada is very merciful, they understand. But when we go on a wrong track, unnecessarily finding fault, blaspheming, focusing on others' shortcoming, passing sarcastic remarks, then Krishna Prabhupada don't tolerate. It is tantamount to Vaishnava Aparadha, and then our consciousness is ruined. So if we are Krishna conscious, be careful, sincerely work, all our acts become yajna, and as Prabhupada is explaining in this verse, then overall there will be prosperity. Our consciousness will be bright. We'll be Krishna conscious, which is ultimately what we are trying to be. So this is a wonderful verse where it says, if Krishna consciousness is there, then there is no shortage. There is happiness, there is joy. One is nicely situated. There is profuse supply of everything. There is no disgruntlement. We can see the hand of Krishna. We can see the reciprocation of the Lord. We can see how the Lord is so loving, so kind to His devotees. So all that good things we'll be able to experience. So we'll stop here. Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki.